it's got to clearly depend on how bad the shot is, though. Because if you get fouled and knocked unconscious and then you come back,
you're just going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
If you get knocked out, that's why boxing, right?
Comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms.
It was like a big part of it is speed. AnthoJoshua has that kind of speed.
Joe Rogan reacted strongly to Jake Paul's hospitalization following the knockout loss to AnthoJoshua while discussing the incident with Daniel Cormier. He highlighted how devastating the punch looked and reminded everyone that boxing is an extremely dangerous sport. Rogan explained that when fighters are caught clean at that level, the consequences can be severe and long-term, stressing that outcomes are never truly predictable and that such impacts can cause permanent damage that stays with fighters for life.
He was
and then
done.
He outboxed him for the rest of the round.
How? But again, in MMA, fight probably would have been over, and he would have took less damage.
Right, but isn't that a...
Sports Dr. Brian Sutter analyzed the aftermath of the knockout in a calm, medically focused manner, explaining that while the fight's outcome was largely expected, the real concern began after Jake Paul admitted he feared his jaw was broken. Sutter said a fractured jaw was absolutely possible given how cleanly AnthoJoshua's right hand landed on the left side of Jake's face, but emphasized that a concussion would be the greater concern. He noted that jaw fractures often take a back seat to more serious risks involving the head, neck, or airway, and explained that the violent rotation of Jake's head from the punch likely sent significant rotational force through the brain and brainstem, increasing the risk of concussion. Although Jake was not fully knocked out, Sutter warned that delayed symptoms were still possible, adding that Jake's immediate shock and reaction showed he knew something serious had occurred.
Outcome that we all expected. After the fight, though, Jake told Ariel Helwani that he was worried that he had broke his jaw. He said multiple times he was concerned that he had a fractured jaw. And certainly looking at this knockout punch that AnthoJoshua delivers, it is absolutely a possibility that Jake does in fact have a jaw fracture. I'd honestly be more concerned about a concussion. In fact, with most jaw fractures, the more important thing initially is to look for other injuries to the head, to the neck, to the airway. The jaw fracture potentially being there or not is going to be lower on the list often than whether there's damage to the airway, damage to the head. And so very possible to have a concussion or some residual symptoms from this, as Jake Paul's head is relatively still here. We see AJ comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms. But you can see where the punch comes in, landing square on that left side of Paul's face. Jake's reaction was pretty telling too. Right away after it, we could see him going down on the canvas here and being very shocked. It doesn't look like there's any obvious deformity to the jaw. We won't necessarily always see a deformity to the jaw, but you could tell he clearly had realized that something serious had happened there and feeling the full power of AJ's right. And finally, on this last view, we can see a little bit better the exact location where the punch comes in. We'll talk about our jaw anatomy, the different areas of the bones, but your temporomandibular joint, where your jaw articulates with the rest of your skull, is sitting right around in this area, and the jaw is roughly coming down in this orientation. And so where that punch comes in from Joshua is a little bit more kind of flush right in the center of the mandible, but also up.
Joe Rogan had predicted even before the fight that things would not end well for Jake Paul, explaining that Jake was accustomed to facing older or retired opponents, but this time he was stepping in with one of the best heavyweights in the world. Rogan warned that the gap in skill and power would be dangerous and unforgiving.
Joe Rogan experience.
What do you think about Jake Paul, AnthoJoshua?
Boy. Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. Maybe we should watch the Francis Ngannou fight so you could see. Let's watch that real quick, just so you can see what AnthoJoshua is capable if he's fighting someone that's not in his league. Okay, look, Usyk beat him, and he beat him twice, and Andy Ruiz caught him in the first fight and dropped him and stopped him.
The aftermath of Jake Paul stepping into the ring with AnthoJoshua triggered widespread reaction throughout the boxing world. While some fans praised Jake for his courage in facing such a dangerous opponent, many respected boxing voices strongly rejected that narrative. Luke Thomas was among the most outspoken critics, arguing that the praise was wildly exaggerated and that people were applauding Jake simply for surviving rather than truly competing. Thomas pointed out that AnthoJoshua did not fight at full intensity and appeared to hold back many of his punches, framing the bout not as a competitive match, but as a controlled situation in which a top-level heavyweight showed restraint. In his view, Jake's performance showed no real skill development, tactical intelligence, or growth, as he looked overwhelmed for most of the fight, struggled to engage meaningfully, and never showed a clear intent to win.
I watched the Jake Paul versus AnthoJoshua fight. I think I would say that my conclusions now still match most of what I said when I was watching on the initial broadcast, which is that Joshua, he did look a little rusty to me. I'm sorry, but he did. That Jake is, probably a little bit better than we suggested he might be. When I say we, I mean like the hardcore fight community, the fight fans, the people who work in the industry to a degree. Sometimes there is a suggestion that he can't do anything. And I would be like, well, that's a little much. He can do stuff. I mean, it's limited what he can do. It's very limited what he can do. But there is a little bit too much anger towards him sometimes, or just dismissiveness, maybe is a better way to put that. And I don't really co-sign on some of that. He's got some ability. He's not good. Listen to me very carefully. He's not good. But is he the caricature that he is sometimes made out to be in terms of his pure boxing skill? I think it goes a little overboard sometimes. But that isn't the reason why I wanted to make this video. What I wanted to make this video about is two things. One, after the fight was over, I got on social media and people were like hugely negative about the fight. And I did not think that the fight was good. In fact, I thought the fight was, like most Jake Paul fights, pretty bad, although him surviving kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. A little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he...
That wraps up today's video. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.